I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone on the call today. My name is Rebecca, and I'm a partner manager here at Antares. I'll be your host for today. I'd like to make today as interactive and lively as possible, so feel free to grab a cup of coffee as I do and join us today. And if you have any questions, feel free to type into the Q&A box and we will answer it throughout the whole session. We will first be exploring the data and AI landscape, the latest trend in the market, some use cases, and finally, we'll be looking at machine learning with Acterys. With me, I have four speakers for today. Johnny Chung, he's the head of data and AI at Antares. Johnny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Johnny Chung, and I head up the data and AI practice at Antares. We've been working with our customers to help them get more out of their data investments for the last over 16 years, across multiple industries. We know that planning is not a new concept, and analytics is certainly not new. But the capability to actually do both together effectively is a common struggle that we see quite often. So our focus is to help our customers to improve their planning and analytics capability.
Well said, Johnny. Next up, we have Kelvin Wen. He's the principal consultant for data and AI, focusing on data science at Antares. Kelvin, could you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Kelvin, principal consultant of Antares Solutions. Main focus here is on data science. I'm a hybrid between the trinity of academic, business, and IT. I was a lecturer in AI, data mining, and machine learning, and I've been working in supply chain and finance for over 15 years, heading a process improvement for listed companies specialized in implementing analytics in-house. In the last 5 years, I've switched to the other side, to the IT side, implementing AI and analytics for clients, including government agencies and MNCs.
Awesome. So looks like you've joined the dark side. So next up, I have Martin Crackey. He's the CEO as well as founder of Acterys. Martin, could you give an introduction to yourself as well as your experiences with planning analytics?
Yeah, hi there. Good morning, everyone. I've been in the analytics and planning industry for the last 20 years. Also involved initially on the customer side and then more on the consulting. And in the last 6 years, predominantly focused on developing software that helps organizations to implement planning quicker and combine planning with best of breed planning capabilities.
Very smart move to start your own company. Next up, lastly, we have Richie. He's the Asia Pacific Director of Acterys. Richie, could you introduce yourself as well as your experiences with planning analytics?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. My name's Richie. I've worked in planning and analytics since 2005. And yeah, in that time, seen a lot of change. But yeah, still the same old age problems in terms of challenges around data and processes, and yeah, bringing that all together. So yeah, at Acterys, I'm really in charge of customer success and work with partners such as Johnny, like he says, to help get the best out of their data investments.
That's great. So Richie, since I'm going to start with you, some audience here may not be familiar with planning analytics. Can you tell us exactly what is planning analytics?
Yeah, cool. So it's nothing new. It's actually, fragmented processes, data, and people. And what it is, a framework, just bringing this all together. So it always starts different from other technology projects, which focuses on automation, whilst there's a component of that in planning and analytics, or XP&A. It's all about upside, linking strategy or value. So whether it's around profitability or revenue growth, being able to connect your business from strategy, finance, and operations. So it's about bringing those worlds together, so you can have one unified data model from finance to sales and supply chain, HR, so you can know your exact positions and make better decisions with your data. So it's nothing revolutionary. It's actually just been able to, it's business-led, technology-enabled, but trying to bring it all together into one cohesive framework.
I see, I see. So it's very similar to XP&A, planning analytics. They're all talking about the same thing, right, Richie?
Correct. I think it can get confused. We can't agree on these blanket terms as an industry, but yeah, it's essentially planning, reporting and analysing your business in one platform, on one platform. So there's no data movement. You haven't got the big integration costs and the key dependency on people, but it's all the same thing. Correct.
Ah, that's great. So I'd like to next ask Johnny, what are some of the challenges you have seen with customers trying to seek for planning analytics solutions?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Planning is an activity that happens in every organization and departments. Whether it be as mentioned, of financial planning, demand or sales forecasting. Traditionally has been done in quite often in Excel spreadsheets across multiple departments, across multiple teams. And this exercise usually takes weeks to compile, together, prepare, and eventually you consolidate all these different information together. And not only is it's very disconnected and clunky, it's also very frustrating. And hence, one of the reasons that we don't do it very often. So at this point, I think I like to hear from everyone. How often do you actually do your planning? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? It would be good to actually get an understanding of how often you actually do your planning at this point. And then after we pull all this information together, the next thing is that we now need to ask IT or system experts, right, to load all this planning data that we have into another system, so that we can actually monitor and track ourselves against this plan, and which then of course in along the way will help us make decisions. However, this is very clunky process end to end. So when it comes to a solution, there are solutions out there, but they're either but they either too rigid or too complex, and also most of them requires an extensive amount of integration and training. So our customers are desperate for a solution to help them to transform this clunky process to be more agile. Number one, right? So you got to be more agile with your planning, and then more flexible, so that a solution that would fit all different sort of scenarios, all different sort of planning scenarios, different sizes of business or departments. But also at the same time, they would like to be able to start small, right? And then eventually be able to grow from it as well. And so on top of that, want to be able to leverage their existing, Microsoft knowledge or capabilities. And on top of that, doing all of this in a single platform. So we couldn't find anything in the market. Until we found Acterys.
That sounds like a very tough job, doing everything, the planning, the forecasting, and and all the numbers related. And just for everyone here on the call today, we have from the question that Johnny asked about how often you do planning, we have the highest number on quarterly, just for reference to everyone. Next up, I'll ask Kelvin. How does Acterys help you address some of those challenges that Johnny has mentioned?
Sure. I can give some examples. I think Johnny mentioned about the frustration of planning together cross-functional team. So I've got an example which is real life. We're just completing an Acterys project for a pharmaceutical company. So the finance team and the operations team are using different systems. The forecast system generate a sales forecast, and then they will spend days and weeks to argue about the sales forecast is not being correct. And at the end of the day, they will do their own forecast. They will do their own forecast adjustment on top of the sales forecast. So instead of finance being the oversight, managing the business, cross-department were just working in silos, doing their own thing. Furthermore, when we were looking at their data, we see negative numbers. and which flagged us to do further investigation. So what happened was the finance team wants to drive down the aggregate net sales forecast. So instead of reducing the forecast on each item, they were putting large negative numbers in the selected items so that it drive down the aggregate net sales forecast. So you can imagine the finance and the operations are now working with different version of truth, and they never agree on each other. So Acterys is there to help them to work together, enable them to create a different forecast scenarios very quickly, and then agree on one version of truth and execute that business plan. And all of this is just in a couple of clicks. So with that, I would like to ask the audience, do you finance and operations use the same systems?
So yeah, I could see how this could be, you know, a problem, a potential problem, to be quite honest, because if they they have different goals in mind, obviously, and they are being pulled into different directions, and that could be potentially a very big problem. So yeah, with that, I'd like to ask Martin. So we have been talking about Acturus so far. What prompted you to start Acturus in the first place, and how much have you helped client in their journey so far?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have been involved in implementing these kind of projects for a long time. And these used to be very expensive, very long-lasting projects that took months to implement. And we were trying to come up with a better way, particularly supported by new trends like the cloud and self-service analytic solutions like Power BI. And we thought, why not combine all these together? So an option where the users can start very quickly, they just sign up in 2 minutes, have a cloud-based environment, where they then can very easily add their relevant source systems, typically financial systems, ERP, accounting systems. So we allow them to do this in some cases with just one click. So they automatically get all the relevant finance information there. This is a process that traditionally before then took weeks, because it was a what was called ETL projects, extraction, transformation, and loading. So it took a long while and a lot of effort to set these things up. And we are now completely automating this process. And then, as opposed to having a separate planning application, which typically were very expensive, we said, we have already really good analytics platforms that the business users can control themselves. They're very business user friendly. They offer unparalleled analysis capabilities. Why have planning run as a separate thing and not integrate all this together? So you have the market leading analytics, and you have very powerful planning capabilities that cover any planning aspect that you can imagine, from financial planning, operational planning, project planning, cash flow planning, and to many more to mention. All of them very easy and quick to implement, with the ETL side, data integration side, in many cases completely automated. But then the flexibility also to customize it exactly to their needs with capable partners like Antares that can support this process. So you have a very flexible platform that can be customized exactly what the requirements are in the quickest possible time.
I see. So, I'd like to hear from the audience as well. What analytic tools do you currently use? Do you use Power BI? Do you use Excel, or do you use others in the system? So I believe you if even if you're using Excel, you can actually use Acturus. Is that right, Martin?
Yes, absolutely. So again, where we are a little bit different with our approach is we're not introducing another exotic database where you have to hire very expensive experts, to maintain all this and implement it. We are building on the standard Azure platform. So in this case, Azure SQL Server, which is already likely the widely used data platform out there. It's already used at a lot of our customers as the standard. It's super secure as well. So all the data, when you do your planning, ends up in this data store, which is also accessible with nearly any tool you want. I mean, obviously we support Power BI, but we also have a very powerful add-in into Excel that even supports using Excel in the browser and using Excel on the Mac. So the users work in a familiar Excel environment, but as opposed to copying the data directly in the spreadsheet, they work off the central server in real time. So this means you can have the same workbook covering millions of different report views because it just changed the filter. I want to now do my planning for a particular quarter, for example. I just changed the filter, it automatically updates in Excel. And I can put my numbers in, but my numbers aren't stored in Excel. They're stored in the central database with all the benefits that, I only see and can change what I'm allowed to change, as opposed to an Excel sheet where it's always all or nothing. I'll give you the spreadsheet, you can see everything, or nothing if I don't give you the sheet. Whereas in our case, the users have to authenticate within their familiar Excel environment, which gives them then access to the data that they are allowed to see, and then also to change. And then also with the advantage that you have a clear audit trail. So in Excel, there's very serious issues in the history of since this product has been around, where people inadvertently override numbers and formulas, and then you have millions of dollars of discrepancy because someone by chance, brought over an Excel value.
Oh,
And
no.
this can't happen anymore because you have a very clear audit trail because everything happens on the one central database that you exactly know who did what when. And the calculations are also on the central database where even if you override something in Excel, it wouldn't affect your model.
Yeah, certainly. So we've been talking about planning analytics so far, but I believe actuaries do have a capability in forecasting as well. It's not just limited to planning. So Kelvin, so you used to be a lecturer on machine learning. So I'd like to hear your input about how actuaries can actually aid in the development of machine learning and some of its use cases.
Sure. I'm a believer that human and AI can work together to help business to boost that extra profit, where only machine can identify it. I mean, we've been in business many years. We know what we can do, and how do we boost that extra profit? I think that's where AI and Actors falls in. So whether it's better forecasting, retaining customers, or predicting what customer will likely to buy, these are all real AI applications, and Actors can sit right in the middle of it. So for example, when we're doing forecasting, when we'll try to improve our forecast accuracy, right? So to do that, we can have AI and human working together while completing the process in days, not weeks, not months. By Actors, the human insights can then be part of the data input to put back into the AI model to retrain it to improve further on forecast accuracy. And recently, we have completed a machine learning activity for a retail chain, providing them with product recommendation rules where they can upsell and cross-sell. So for those who are not familiar with product recommendation, is part of machine learning where a end customer buy A or bought A is more likely to buy B. And executing that product recommendation rule without proper planning, I'm sure they will run out of stock very quickly. However, if we put these AI-generated product recommendation rules into Actors, it will help the business to manage procurement, inventory, and manage their stock in advance, boosting that extra business performance that they have been looking for.
So I think I attended a Microsoft webinar the other day on the AI journey, and they mentioned even if 1% of reduction of product loss because of loss of stock result in about 20% increase in their revenue. So that I think it's actually quite a precious result there. So Richie, last question for you. What does someone need to do if, say, for example, they want to start on and go on an XP&A journey? So what do they need to do?
Yeah, so I think to get started on your XP&A journey, it is a business-led, technology-enabled process, which I think I mentioned before. So it's really about getting the business together and that mindset and being collaborative. And that's the first piece. You really got to set out, I think, with the changed mindset that you want to do this better, that we're working in silos. And so you need some strong leadership with the vision, but also someone who's got attention to the detail, some soft skills. When you're doing any type of change management, you want to be somewhat likable at the end of the process or during the process to get people on board. But you really have to know what's in it for, these other department heads. Why do they need to change the way they're doing things today? So I think that's a very important part of any sort of XP&A journey, getting that down pat. The technology piece is the easy part. And then when you're talking about getting started, like Martin said before, part of our proposition is really being able to get time to value, because we're leveraging existing technology and skills often. And we've got this automation in the often the ugliest, grittiest, most expensive parts of the project around data integration. So we can connect to source systems. So we've got a framework called the Fast Start. And what we do in that process is we identify one output that's going to give you a quick win, because it's all about creating momentum. That's going to give you something of high material value to the business, but relatively low effort. So we want to turn these things around in days, as opposed to this big, long-winded project that often you lose a little bit of focus when it's quite long and complex. So fast start, a few days, pick an output, we'll connect to the source, automate a process, give you a nice front end visual with some simple workflow. And often that's where people start in actual development.
I really like the idea of fast start, because you can get quick wins, within the business as well. So to prove the value that it really is able to work and get immediate value from the implementation itself. So we are very good on time, everyone. So we have 7 minutes left for questions for today. And now taking questions from the audience. I can see that we have several questions already. I'm just going to direct the questions to everyone right here. So Martin, do I need Power BI in order to use Acterys? Kelvin has asked this question.
No. So as I mentioned before, so the data is in the standard SQL database, and then you can access it with whatever tool you prefer. Excel among them, but this could also be a Power BI competitor, respectively, nearly any other analysis tool. But still, we very much recommend Power BI. I mean, there is nothing at the moment out there that provides equally powerful analysis at this kind of low price point. And the combination of both sort of having these really strong analysis components with the planning and business modeling capabilities and the ready-made apps and templates that Acterys provides is, in our opinion, unbeatable.
I see. I do have John. He said that he's a PhD student here at Monash University, and he's currently using MATLAB and Python to do analysis on his data. So if you, any of the speakers today have any opportunities or, that to talk about that in regards to what John has mentioned, please do as well. So next up, I have Martin asking about where do you see opportunities of AI in planning? I'm going to direct this question to Martin again.
Yes, it's a very wide field. Our CTO is a PhD in machine learning, so he's very excited about all the opportunities that are out there. And we are looking at the moment at not just looking, we're actually implementing them as well. But we have a lot of interesting things in the pipeline. And so there's a few areas. One area is what we call knowledge-based learning, where you gather human knowledge across the organization and add it to the to your planning process. So, for example, we have a large retailer with 600 retail shops, and they have experienced people that know, at these particular times, for example, at a public holiday, these products will sell very well if you put them in front of the shop. And you gather all this knowledge and then add it to the planning process, and then the AI will also help you to improve it. You can say, okay, has this really improved my results in this kind of circumstance or not? And so the algorithm will learn and will get better and better. Another option is automated analysis of your data. So, for example, we have large accounting groups. Typically, they have accountants looking for anomalies in their data, what could be fraudulent, what is incorrectly classified, and these things. So have AI algorithms that identify these kind of situations. And then, as we've already discussed, the forecasting methods. So based on the one hand, historic data, but also what we are quite excited about, because typically the history on its own is questionable, particularly in dynamic times like these, where you have situations that you never had before. So to combine the historic data with current environmental factors, like, I don't know, energy price increases and so on, and help users to get initial planning numbers into a system more or less completely automated, but then still requiring the human involvement to refine them based on human knowledge, but it makes the start definitely quicker.
I see. So, Kelvin, next question's up for you. What is the difference between Agile machine learning forecasting and other forecasting systems?
I think traditional forecasting model only use one algorithm, like ARIMA, to forecast. Agile ML use multiple models, and it will automatically find the best model for different scenarios. And Agile ML gives you the perfect balance between automation and customization. So, for example, you can determine the forecast frequency, you determine the validation methods, while Agile ML will automatically automate the tedious hyperparameter fine-tuning the model for you. When Agile ML detects there is a exception, things that happen outside of standard deviation, it will automatically trigger a rerun of the model and make sure that the future forecasts still fall into the acceptable range.
Sounds very technical for me, actually. But that's I guess that's the lecturers talking. So I think we're very good on time, and we still have a minute left. So as a reminder, before we go off from today's webinar, Richie, again, what does someone need to do if they choose to go on an XP&A journey? If you can summarize everything today.
Yeah, no, if they want to do that, we can contact you by email. I can tell you exactly the next steps if you want to start that XP&A journey, even if at discovery phase and just want to know a little bit more. Very, very willing to share some information, but I'll reach out to you by email. And yeah, I really appreciate your time. I know time's precious these days, and thanks for joining us.
Yep. Before everyone go, I'm just gonna send a poll for how do they rate the coffee chat for today, and for the questions that we didn't manage to answer, yep, we will come back to you via email and I'll give you a call today. So thank you all for joining today, and this is part of a series that we are launching on Coffee Chat. So we hope to see you in the next Coffee Chat. Thank you everyone for joining. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.